Good morning.
I know there's.
I'd like to call the May 24th County Board meeting to order. First item is roll call. Roll call would show all commissioners are present. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item is approving the agenda. There are 3 items from Public Works to add to the consent agenda. The first item is the final payment for County Road 186 concrete resurfacing. The second item is approving the bid for the Ricori Trail Phase 3 project. Or is there only 2? Yeah, maybe there's only 2. Is there one more? Oh, here we go. And the third item is approving a bid for an enhanced curve delineation, which would be SP 073-070-023. Not sure which road that is, but it's just needed for consent approval. So with that, we look for approval of the agenda with the 3 added consent items.
So moved.
They're Public Works items, it says.
Yep, these 3 Public Works we added.
To the consent agenda, right?
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Clark. Do we have a second?
I can second that.
Okay, second by Commissioner Lenzmeyer. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Our next item then is the Public Access Forum. Anyone wishing to speak at today's board meeting on any items not found on our agenda may step up to the microphone, state your name and address, and you're limited 3 to 4 minutes. And the county board will not engage in discussion on any topics, but you're welcome to bring your concerns forward. Is there anyone here today wishing to speak at the Public Access Forum? Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. So we added 3 items to the consent agenda, C8, 9, and 10. Is there a motion to approve? Anything needed to be pulled?
Mr. Chair, I'll move all of the items, including the additional ones, but I would just like to have a little clarification on number 5.
Okay.
If we could have Becky maybe just address a couple of questions here.
Okay, do you want to, should we take a second?
Okay, let's take a second.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second to approve the consent. Commissioner Persky has a question on item 5.
Yeah, Becky, that had come through the Planning Commission on Thursday night. And we had heard from a good number of residents from that area about the sensitivity of the lake that's in that area and about concerns about the manure management practices and how we're dealing with that. And of course, I think that is worth addressing so that they understand where we are. The Planning Commission approved recommendation moving forward, but I am sure those folks and myself, we still are concerned about the quality of the water in that lake and what's going on out there. So can you just tell us what will happen there and make sure we're mindful about what is going on?
Sure, Commissioner Persky, Board Chair. We are we would be issuing an MPCA and county ordinance permit for the site, if approved. With that means that they have an approved manure management plan for what they will be doing with the manure that meets the state requirements. And then they are required to keep records of what they actually do with the manure. And then based on complaint or inspection of the facility, we can request copies of those records and make sure that everything was done according to the rule requirements. So basically one of the things that members of the public can do if they have concerns and see issues out there is certainly contact our office right away, and then we can go out and investigate.
Anybody else?
Anybody else have any comments? If not, we have a motion and a
Thank you.
second.
Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. To approve the consent agenda items. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. At this time, we'll recess our regular meeting and open the Human Services Board meeting. Morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Melissa Huberty, I'm the Human Services Administrator. There are 2 items on the Human Services consent agenda today, and they're items D1 and D2 on pages 85 and 88 respectively. The first item is a request to authorize Human Services to apply for the Stronger Foundations Grant, which is our home visiting grant. The Maternal, Infant, and Early Childhood Home Visiting Grant, it's usually referred to McV, funds these services. Beginning in 2023, the McV grant will be renamed the Stronger Foundations Grant, and we're asking for the board's authorization to submit our Stearns County application to fund our family home visiting services. And as a part of the Stronger Foundations Grant, we will be also supporting an application to fund centralized outreach services for family home visiting in partnership with the 4-county collaborative known as First Steps Central Minnesota. The second item is on D2 on page 88 is claims spent on behalf of Human Services clients, and I'm available for questions.
Anybody have any questions for Melissa? So Melissa, on that first grant, is any of the structure of that change after post-COVID or with visiting or any of that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'm not sure that it's related directly to COVID, but it has been retooled.
Okay.
So it is a change in the focus of the grant. It is a grant for family home visiting, but they're also hoping to have more of the centralized outreach and to have more outreach to families so that they can get family home visiting services.
Okay, thank you. Can we get a motion on the consent items for Human Services?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark and Commissioner Persky. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
Melissa.
That's all I have today.
All right, then we'll reconvene our regular
See you in a
meeting
little
again.
Yes, yes, thank you.
And I think we're up to administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a team here to provide you with a report on the recent storm damage. I don't know who's going to, I think Kristen's going to be up first.
I will be. Just rearrange here. Good morning, Mr. Chair, fellow board members. Kristen Cheetah with Emergency Management, and I am here this morning to provide an update on the storms that came through the county a couple weeks ago and what Emergency Management is currently doing as far as damage assessment goes and requesting assistance from the state. So beginning the week of May 8th, that's Sunday, through the 12th, the county saw numerous storm systems come through on various days. Most of those storms touching different portions of the county, but including damaging winds, large hail, as well as torrential rains, depending on where you were. Following those storms, we did an initial damage assessment of the entire county, cities and townships, and found that 14 townships and 15 cities had been affected, as well as utility companies and school districts. So moving forward with that information, we went and did further damage assessment. Most of the uninsured costs are coming through the way of debris management, emergency protective measures for those debris, power outages, primarily road washouts and culvert repairs due to flooding, as well as wind damage. So at this time, what Emergency Management is working on with Homeland Security and Emergency Management for the state is bringing FEMA out to do a preliminary damage assessment next week. What that means is that we are collecting estimates from all of the townships and cities in the county for their uninsured damage. Again, road washouts, culvert repairs, down trees, personnel time, equipment costs, vehicles, etc. We're collecting those estimates, and then they will sit down and meet with the state and FEMA to go through how much it's going to cost to fix their uninsured damages. Hopefully, with that being said, the intention then is that the state will reimburse 75% of their costs with a local 25% match. I will turn this over to Dan, and he can show you our mapping system.
Good morning, I'm Dan Schmitz, the GIS manager at the county here. So the GIS team has been working with Emergency Management on getting some of this damage mapped. So we built an online web map for them, and in this, you can see we got some red points and the orange points. The red points are points where emergency management just gave the GIS team a list of addresses and we put them on the map for them. The orange points come from a survey that we have built. That's part of the rapid damage assessment tools, which we recently did our annual training on. So our local business partners, such as township clerks and law enforcement and fire departments, can go out using the survey on their cell phone or tablet that has a wireless plan. They can take a photo and collect data specific to the points. So we've got a really good response from the Luxembourg Township Clerk, who did all these points down here. A bunch of these other ones are, some of them are township clerks and others are from law enforcement and the sheriffs. But it's a great tool that we were able to help provide so that they can get this live. And as soon as that, anytime anyone submits one of those surveys, it comes up on this mapping application right away where Kristen and Aaron and the emergency management team can see what's going on. So I shouldn't have done this because now I'm gonna have to log into it. And it can be password protected. So this is too, so that, you know, nobody, if we didn't want them to get access to it, they couldn't. But I just wanted to pull up super quick just to show. That, you know, they can put in all this information about who submitted it, what kind of parcel it is, what the issue was. So in this case, the roof blew off and took out a power pole and then can attach the photo. So all of that is accessible right away as soon as somebody submits it by the emergency management team.
Good morning, Mr. Chair,
Morning.
Commissioners. So as we look at our job as assessors, since there was no declaration made, we're going to continue our quintile inspections as usual. We've instructed our staff at this time to kind of steer clear of those areas until water's received and some of the damage is cleaned up. But as we get out and start looking at these areas, we will add map dots as Dan showed. We will also look at the local option disaster abatement option, which is similar to, you know, if a house had a fire or something similar to that. So since no declaration was made at this time, we'll be able to go ahead and do that route. And then also callbacks on damaged properties. We'll put callbacks on. We'll take a look at them in the fall again to see if people have rebuilt, or, you know, it's possible that they don't decide not to rebuild, or you know, if a basement's flooded, they may gut the basement and not rebuild the basement at that time. So we'll be able to take the value off of that property going forward. So there's a few different options that we'll look at that time. You know, other than that, we're going to kind of business as usual for us at this time. If something does come up, if you know, a declaration is made, we'll go ahead and go that route with it. But at this time, it's kind of business as usual for us. But if you guys have any questions, let me know.
Okay. Anyone have questions for any individuals? No? Well, we appreciate all the effort you put in. You know, it was kind of widespread and not just in one locale. So hopefully we're done with this for a while. I'm sure a lot of the residents, especially the farmers, are probably wanting it to dry out a little bit to get their crops in. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for the update.
A lot of work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, maybe one item on that mapping. So is anybody able to access that GIS points, or is that just an internal?
So it's password protected now,
Okay.
but that is something that we can decide if we want. I was probably talking to the microphone. Yeah. It's password protected now, but that is something that if we want to, we can either clean out information that's they don't want available and make it public. So that is something we can do.
Oh, okay. So an individual maybe one day could go on the county's website and just kind of look at, well, can you see just the dots? Or
Not right now, but I can set it up so that could be done. But
yeah.
right now, it's
without
all
putting the
behind wall.
information on there, people could just pull it up and say, oh, here's the path of where there was destruction. But, okay,
Mr.
thank
Chair.
you.
Sorry.
Hey, Commissioner Clark?
Yeah. One, that I think that would be helpful. And as you look recognize that there could be concern about would the tool get not used appropriately or something, but it could see where it could really make a difference, not just for our own or local needs, but helping make the case for when a disaster maybe should be declared, or even just tracking what the heck's going on. So scary stuff. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, just the bullets
Yeah,
really,
just the
without even,
bullets. Right,
noticing who it is.
right, exactly.
Would be interesting to see, probably for the public, but, okay, thank you. All right, well, that was quick and easy so far. I guess we're up to issues by commissioners. Commissioner Clark?
Well, and I was wondering, Mike, did you want to talk about the broadband?
I was going to bring that up.
Okay, good, yeah,
Once
because that's what I was
everybody's
going to
We do
bring up.
have,
Yeah.
I had some questions for Mike, too.
Okay, well, let's
do have
skip
about
the
5.
issues by commissioners and we'll jump right to administration's.
Is that okay? And
Issues.
then yes, depending upon what else he
Okay,
does or
I
doesn't.
was
We
going to
have a
run them
couple
up at
things.
the end, but okay.
I was ready today.
we just have, thank you, Mr. Chair, we have like 5 updates on 5 topics, I guess. And I think someone asked about the broadband. I put a map in front of you there that shows where we are with townships participating. And there is a mistake there. The Raymond Township in the Northwest, they have approved the resolution too. So, and then you can see the dates on 3 townships there. We'll be talking with Melrose, St. Martin, and Collegeville in the next 2 weeks. And that'll pretty much conclude our discussions with the townships. And I think those 3 are probably going to participate. And so where we are at this point is we have draft agreements with the providers. Actually, Arvig and I have been fine-tuning an agreement, and we'll get one to Albany Tel soon. And Midco has one in hand too, because those are the 3 that we wanted to act on quickly. There's some good news, I think, from the state legislator. There was, and I think I might have sent you a brief email on that yesterday, but they did allocate some general fund dollars, $50 million, so that won't be tied up by this Treasury decision, so they can move that out and get that into the border program quickly, at least fairly quickly. And then there is at least $100 million coming from the federal government in this BEAD program, and the legislator also committed that to the border program. So they do have I think a healthy amount in comparison to previous years, a healthy amount of dollars to put into the border program, which if you look at our numbers, we really need probably $16 million of border or some other grant type of funding to match our 16 and the providers' numbers too. So I think we're moving along well there. At this point, you can see the map shows a good participation. There's a few townships that aren't participating, but for example, those on the far south end, they will just basically be excluded from the project. Some that might be found right in the middle, we might have to do something a little different there. But we continue to communicate with those townships. If there's questions on that, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, I'll move on to another issue.
My question was relating to the broadband and the legislature, and we can take it in order. Was there anything else that happened or didn't happen on Sunday night from the legislature that impacts us?
Yes.
I know a couple of commissioners attended the AMC summary. There's some things that did not happen. The tax bill did not happen. The corrections bill
Excuse me, Mr.
did
Chair,
not
I
happen.
normally wouldn't interrupt you, but some things didn't happen, like most of the stuff did.
Yeah.
They need to come back. Okay,
Yeah.
now go ahead.
No, there is a lot of disappointment in things that didn't happen. The broadband is probably the only bright spot right now, I think. Well, we have a couple of things like one of our priorities was to have this ability to share information when we're dealing with someone in a mental health crisis, and that did pass and was adopted. There's a lot of things that are good for counties in the tax bill that didn't get passed. There's $30 million in county program aid, which was, I think, was pushing $1 million more for Stearns County, 900,000, yeah, 800,000, okay. And there's some property tax relief changes so that there's some property tax relief from the rapidly increasing values that didn't happen. So I think most of us are hoping that they do have a special session and pass some of those things. The corrections bill that included more dollars and a change in the formula did not pass. So there's a number of county priorities that were on our priority list that didn't get adopted too, but are in play if there is a special session. I don't know. I know others attended the AMC session. If you have anything to add.
Thank you.
Did you have something, Commissioner Clark?
Oh, I was going to say the omnibus mental health bill was pretty decent. They got that done, and there's some components there that really will make a difference, both for people involved, but also from a budget standpoint, at least. So there's some good things there, and it's not all the way done, but a number of the competency restoration components got put in, so that's also a good thing. But that was part of it. But most of the money-related things to Health and Human Services, their target was like $1 billion, and they're not there yet. So hopefully they will come back on those things. But the mental health one, it's worth taking a look to see what all was done there.
I'm sorry, transportation, very little happened. As well.
Transportation bonding, there's still a lot of, it looks like they're still talking about, for example, the dedicating the sales tax on auto parts, but they didn't get done.
Yep. Same with
So an
removing
opportunity
taxes.
to encourage people to finish up.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. One other thing that I just wanted to bring up quickly was this issue with, if you remember, the broker property on the river, and now it's owned by a developer that is subdividing it in two parts. The kind of the northern part, they have a plat proposed that'll come to the board. That plat was Majestic River Estates now, is that what it's called? I should use the right term, Majestic River Estates. And the Park Commission the Park Board recommended that rather than parkland dedication fee, that we get a little bit of a buffer alongside the Mississippi Park. And then in anticipation of the next phase being developed, we would get a larger buffer along the park. And the Planning Commission recommended taking the parkland dedication fee, and I just wanted to bring that up. And when that does come forward, you will find staff and the Park Commission recommending that we take the land to create the buffer rather than the dedication fee. And Commissioner Persky's on both those committees, but
Correct. Mike, and I thank you for bringing that up, because it is significant on the north end of that property. Especially we've got the shelter, the parking area for the skiing and the archery range, and it abuts right up there. A small sliver of property is very important just to create that buffer, whether we put trees or just have land there. I mean, just also a play area by that shelter. If we were to come back and try to purchase that property, it would be much more expensive than just taking the parkland dedication, which we are entitled to. We have not used this process, I think, perhaps in the history of anybody that's been here, Lee, I don't know or not, if not, but this is one place where it does have a huge benefit because of the location of the park there. So, and I don't know if we can find another place with river property in the county that would have this potential. So, yeah.
Does the county legally have that option?
yes. Yeah, the parkland dedication ordinance makes it a choice, either take some land or take a fee.
And Commissioner Mergen, that's a very common practice, especially in municipalities. When we were developing Sartell, we take a look at a large piece and then we say, well, what makes sense to have a park here? And then those dedications come into the parcel and create that park. But when you have small parcels coming in and there really is no plan, for the parkland, then you take the payment in lieu. But that park, that dedication can also be used things for like just trail or accessed as well. So it's not just true parkland. It can be recreational also.
Well, we had, I wasn't in on the conversations, but I believe we had general agreement from the developer that they would do it too. Mm-hmm. So it was not a highly contentious issue. I think they would prefer to just pay the fee, but they had made a proposal that did transfer land for a buffer.
Okay. If the county took that land, would they be required to pay the additional amount above the 3,000, the assessed value of the
No.
property? No?
Mr. Chair, yeah. And Mr. Commissioner Mergen, that's something we may need to look at as well, as looking at that dedication fee. I don't think that's been changed in many years or has been looked at for years. So, yeah.
Okay.
Then if we're done with that topic, there was just three others that I think Shelley was going to bring some updates, so.
Yeah, they all deal with environmental services. So we'll have Shelley give us the update. Morning, Shelley.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Shelley Benson, Environmental Services Director. You thought you didn't have me on the agenda, and here I am. A couple of updates for you. One of the questions that has been kind of brought up and we've been discussing over the past year or so was El Rancho and the licensing at El Rancho. I know there were some commissioners have received emails and there's been back and forth, so I wanted to give you an update. So as of Friday, the licenses from Environmental Services were issued for limited food and campground. The campground is allowed up to 120 permanent sites. In ordinance, we do allow 12 temporary sites, or 10% through the zoning ordinance under a provisional use 4 times a year for 4 consecutive days. That information has also been provided to the county, so we know exactly which sites are to be used on which days. So that was a part of the permitting process. DNR was contacted, and according to our county attorney's office, DNR found no violations on site related to what they regulate. There has been flooding, and I don't think anyone will say that there hasn't been flooding. We've seen it all over the county. Wetland staff was out and reviewed the property and have found no violations related to the Wetland Conservation Act at this time. That doesn't mean they can't happen. That means that we don't have anything at this point. There are a couple of areas that staff will be possibly going back out to relook at, just to make sure things stay where they're supposed to be. All the deck permits that were previously required have been completed and are in compliance. The Board of Animal Health had been contacted, and they are in compliance for the issue that was brought up to the Board of Animal Health. That doesn't mean there won't be other issues brought up, and then we will make sure those get addressed as well. Board of Animal Health often will contact Environmental Services since they are a little bit busy with the avian flu issue, so our staff will go out and do verifications. The sewage treatment systems that exist are in the process of being reviewed and managed under a stipulation agreement. And the reason why we have a stipulation agreement is because when we look at sewage treatment for these large resorts, I'll use Cozy Corners as an example, sometimes we need flow data that covers these holidays to make sure we're seeing the maximum flow. So they're under a stipulation agreement, similar to other campgrounds and other things that we've done in the past when we regulate them. So that's in process. And the other piece is Environmental Services does not issue the liquor licenses, and compliance of liquor license is through the auditor's office. So I know that they're aware of that situation, and I believe they will be applying for their liquor licenses as necessary.
Yeah, on the liquor license issue, just so the board's aware, the township has to approve those. So if the township does not approve them, they do not move forward.
So they would go through the township first, then it goes to Randy's office, and then he goes through their process with that. So that covers El Rancho at the moment. Are there any questions related to that at this time?
Anyone have any questions?
Okay.
Okay.
And if there are, let me know. We have been keeping track of it. We are working with our attorney's office. We are working with their attorneys. We're making sure we cover all the questions that get brought up. The other issue is vacation home rental. There have been, as you are a board aware, there have been people coming previously to public access forum. So staff took it upon themselves to take all that information and review it, knowing that this is probably we should work a little faster than maybe Planning Commission wanted to do that. So we are putting together staff recommendations based on all of the information we have obtained from various other counties that have a significant number of vacation home rentals in their county. We will bring that back to you and do a presentation of that information on the last meeting in June. I think that's the 28th. Is that the right date? Yeah. So June 28th. Then it will go to the Planning Commission in July for their review, and we expect that the public hearing will be August 2nd. So you, as a county board, will have a public hearing on vacation home rentals is what we're looking. So far, that's kind of the schedule that we're establishing. So you will see it first. You'll kind of say, yeah, we think that's the right direction. And then it'll go to Planning Commission to review in July, and then it'll come back to you for public hearing August 2nd. We are in flux with the townships that have moratoriums. Some of them have made decisions, others have not. There's variation in that. So hopefully as we get that information, we will bring it forward. We are also in contact, and the townships wanted to know earlier rather than later, which is why I'm kind of giving you this now as a presentation of a general schedule so that we can start getting information out to townships because they want to know ahead of time what our schedule is for public hearing and process. Any questions on vacation home rental at this time?
Commissioner Persky?
I just anticipate that being a long public hearing.
It may be, and I think that's appropriate. I think there's a lot of questions and a lot of concerns. One of the reasons why we're trying to put this out to you now is so that we can get everyone informed and get everybody out there and on at least understanding what we see the issues are and how they've related to the county, and then what role and relationship we have with the townships and what the expectations would be for those townships. So that's kind of what we're looking for.
Okay.
I think Lee had his hand up, and then I have a question.
Yeah, the thing that I have not heard of, probably because no one thought of it, on the vacation home matter, we don't do, I guess, what I would call, this is a 9/11 analysis. What caught my eye in the most recent vacation home application that came to the board, but it subsequently got turned down, the right-of-way that served that site is 110 years old. Okay? Could an emergency vehicle, if needed, get in to service the properties with that right-of-way? What happened recently with Stearns Electric, they just finished their 4-year plan to clear the right-of-way for their power lines. And a good number of those power lines were around lakes areas. And it caused a kerfuffle with some folks because they were removing trees to preserve their right-of-way. And people got wound up over that, but it was explained to them that, that's what you do when you have a right-of-way. And I don't think, from that experience, it was pretty clear this most recent application that we turned down. There's no way an ambulance could get back in there. There's no way a fire truck could get back in there. And the properties that are being converted to rentals are often older properties that couldn't hope to begin to meet contemporary code. So I think that even though I'm not suggesting we add that concern to the mix in this go-around, I'm asking that you hold the thought. And maybe this will be a longer process, maybe even a multi-year process on how the best ways are to handle that. Because, we'll kick up a lot of dust requiring rental properties to also have the local jurisdictions improve those accesses, to improve those building codes, to require the same safety regulations that, say, apartment structures have to meet in municipal areas. And I'm pretty surprised that hasn't come up yet, but hey, we're not perfect. We can't think of everything.
Okay. Commissioner Clark?
I guess I had a couple of things, but off of that, that's what I'm hearing you say, and you brought it up in our last meeting, is that's actually a broader issue. It's not, it might have been flagged because of the last one. We have it for the residents in there, so I don't know if that's something between Public Works and environmental departments that you're looking at, or?
Mr. Chair, it is something that has been brought to our attention, and not just with this one, but a previous request, and Commissioner Persky probably remembers that one. And again, I think those are the things we have to kind of figure out. What do we want to say about things that are private roads, or even though they have access to a public road, oftentimes a private road is used, so there's variation. So I think we need to have those conversations. I think public safety is one of those pieces that we want to be aware of.
Well, and I have to admit, for me, it's certainly there's a connection to the request, but it's more a broader safety issue. So even taking those out of it, because people can have friends, family, others on those roads, and there seems to be some misunderstanding about which roads are public or not, or how they get used. So, and maybe there's agreement with the local first responders that these are somehow safe enough to be able to get in, you know, kind of, okay, we're going to put tracks on the property. It's, if there's a fire or an emergency, but I think it would be helpful, not just for us, but for the residents to know that we're taking that seriously. And then I was wondering, we had talked a little bit about, or we certainly heard from people about the vast number of unpermitted, informal, apparently informal vacation rentals that are out there. Is anybody, do we have anybody to be taking a look on Airbnb and VRBO to be checking? I know there's services out there, although they're not great. There's a Stearns County resident that has a lake place in Crow Wing who apparently regularly gets contacted with a claim that they are a vacation rental, and they are not. So this entity isn't perfect. But wondering just about what we could do, since it seems like a lot of the issues really are around unpermitted, but maybe more highly used than somebody, you know, doing it for a couple weekends a year or something.
And for clarification, there's a difference between short-term and
Absolutely.
long-term.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
This deals mostly with the short-term.
Yes, so anything that is less than 30 days is considered short-term rental. And so the good news is there are services that can give you something. Will they be the end-all and be-all? No. We do look and check as we have time. Was more in the spring when we were able to get out and, you know, start looking through all the appropriate sites that are out there. They keep popping up. But there's some alternatives that you as a board will have to consider. Is an interim use permit the right mechanism? Are there other ways to regulate? Are there things, what should we be doing? What should we be regulating? And so staff has a kind of a high, medium, low priority, you know, what's most important to you? And we'll bring that back to you so you have time to discuss it and look at it and consider various options. But yes, we do take a look, and we're very fortunate. We have folks who've been letting us know and turning it in and saying, hey, these people are operating without a license. And then from a public health standpoint, we want to make sure that they're aware there are safety and requirements and concerns too. So we've been sending out letters and telling people to cease operations until they get permitted. And in those townships where there are moratoriums, we're letting them know that they have a moratorium and they should be seeking to have conversations with their townships as well.
Just lastly, Mr. Chair, I appreciate that. I mean, it probably is worth trying to figure out if there's some other way besides as people have time, because none of you have time.
Yes.
Also look forward to, you know, what really is the best mechanism here. And we definitely have got the range of both kinds of property, as well as whether it's somebody who's an on-site, you know, person who's who's doing it for fewer times or not. So it'll be good. Thank you for that. I think we all appreciate that. And this is one of those things where it's so complicated. And yet, if people would just talk to each other, it would help a lot.
Yeah, I think we're looking forward to coming up with some options, and you as a board can kind of direct us which way you think will be best. So giving everyone an opportunity to weigh in on that.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Persky.
Yeah, to Commissioner Lenzmeyer's point, yeah, emergency access, I think, is very important to these properties, but not only during the summer season, but also in the winter season in particular. There's a place that I think we approved a year or two ago on just south of Richmond on one of the lakes there that's quite challenging on a private road, which would be more challenging in the winter, as well as one on, I think, School Section Lake. We had one there as well that, again, a private drive, being snowed in, would have no idea how emergency vehicle could get in there. So just something, again, we'll need to be addressing.
I'm pretty sure we give notice or at least make an attempt to involve townships or local municipalities when appropriate when we're considering these. But could we, I would hope, I don't want to tell them what to do because we don't have the authority to do that anyway, but I would hope they would look at that from a 911 perspective. And all we can do is ask them to do that because they would oftentimes be providing the fire protection depending upon where it's located, if it's in a municipality and if they have their own police protection. I would hope that they'd ask about or inquire about that too. But yeah, I just see that as these properties pass into second and more likely third generation ownership, and the expectation of the family is, well, let's see if we can generate some revenue from this. A consideration of public safety doesn't necessarily pop into mind. So I don't have a solution for that, but I think we need to have an awareness for that. I would even like to see what our exposure would be from a legal standpoint, perhaps with an opinion to a general question from Minnesota County's Insurance Trust. I don't know. But as this phenomenon continues to grow, it's not if, it's when something will happen out there, because not everyone, as we've learned in our public hearing, treats the property in the same manner as ownership does.
Oh, Mr. Chair, that seems so attenuated that it would be a little surprising if we did have a liability component there, if there is one, that it would currently exist without rentals, because there are people who live on those ones, and so I'd be a little surprised about that. For me, when you phrase this, to me, it's just put it in a whole different category than this particular component. And this whole issue is another good example, taking the lake usage out of it, which is hard, which we've all found, because the state doesn't put any restrictions on how many entities, boats, toys, people can be on it. So there's that whole concern potentially there. But it's another good example otherwise of how do we create some flexibility and yet some, I guess, known quantity for homeowners and neighbors, et cetera. And at the same point, try to do things where that it's really about the 90% who are just trying to do the right thing. And then how do we mitigate the 10% bad actors? And it seems like there's other states and other counties that have done things. So I'm guessing you all are looking at that to help us how are we putting the onus back on that owner, among other things. So thank you.
I have two other little quick things.
Little ones, so this is what happens when we don't have a long agenda, right?
Yeah.
I was going to gavel.
These are relatively easy. As you heard earlier, there was a question related to North Browns Lake, and some of those residents have submitted a citizen's petition. And that citizen petition, I just got a call this morning from the Environmental Quality Board. And the Environmental Quality Board is the body that looks at those citizen petitions for environmental assessment worksheets. And they have accepted the citizen petition related to the Arnie Greenest property, and they have named the regulatory governmental unit as the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency because it's an MPCA site. So there will be some additional review related to the Arnie Greenest property, not the Ken Greenest property. But just so you know, that is related, and there's been questions. So there is a Environmental Quality Board did and said they will be publishing today in EQB Monitor the citizen petition, which was accepted. So that will be coming forward, and we are very thankful we are not the regulatory governmental unit. So we're glad that Minnesota Pollution Control will do that. The last thing, just briefly, is staff met with the Township of St. Joe and Milk and Honey as the applicant, and members of the public related to Milk and Honey noise monitoring plan. Everyone was out there. Peter Gilliser put together a plan. We brought the noise monitoring equipment so people know what we have. We've had the Sheriff's Department out. So there's a concerted effort by multiple entities and groups to have a better summer season. And the expectation is that people now know where to go, how to manage this going forward. So I think we're in a much better place, and we hope everyone will be able to enjoy their summer in a much better way. So it was a good meeting. Commissioner Persky was there, and I think people felt a lot better based on the change in the stage location and where that monitoring will be and how it will be done. And we will be doing some or unexpected monitoring as well when we go out there once we get their schedule. And that is everything.
Thanks, Shelley. Anybody?
Yes, thanks, Shelley. I'm hopeful, too, that that'll mitigate the issues with the noise out there.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they've done a nice job.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Shelley. Oh, Shelley, Commissioner Lensmeyer?
Yeah, this doesn't necessarily relate to anything environmental services can do about this, but I did a sit-along, this was last summer, with our 911 folks, and there are people that use the 911 system to harass other property owners. And the particular shift that I did, they got a call that affected Milk and Honey, and I asked how often that happened, and our staff person said, oh, almost every day. So the idea that Milk and Honey folks are the bad guys, I think they're getting a lot of help. Boy, that's as polite as I can make it.
That was very polite.
I think they're being harassed, actually, and I would like to know if, at what point does the jurisdiction, like us or like local government, incur liability for not taking any action, and if action could be taken, what would it be? But those are bigger questions, and the first time we'd have to do something, you can bet it would kick up some dust, but that's how it goes.
Thanks, Lee. If no further questions, thank you, Shelley. Okay, now we'll do issues by Commissioner Clark.
Sure.
Wait a minute, maybe I'll just ask Mike. You sure? Are you?
You know everything we know.
Randy, do you have anything? Okay. Commissioner Clark?
Good call. Shortens up what we might say, right? Lee and I got, some of you might be on their listserv too, through the Central Minnesota Council on Aging. There is a workshop on June 21st, a Zoom one, that's done in conjunction with the U on social determinants of aging. So it's one of the social determinants of health. Steve and I, with regard to SHAC, have spent some time on this. It looks actually like it's really good, so it might be something to consider. I'm saying this out loud too, because for a lot of people who work with aging populations, this is probably a good thing. It also could be useful for all of us as we're making decisions or looking at trends in the future. And then really the only other thing that related back to whether there would be a special session or not, Mike and I were talking about with regard to the broader broadband, that something else must have been going on in play because there was a real problem like on Friday about whether there'd be actually any funding, and then this ended up being really good. And it might have been a small difference, but there was a lot of county commissioners contacting and a lot of key staff. So as it relates to like these property taxes, et cetera, them hearing from us about, yes, this is important to our counties, the corrections funding support, that can help make a difference. So just want to encourage, whether it's each of us or the public, if there's something you care about, let them know they should get back and finish it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Persky?
Just one item. Actually, this Memorial Day, we're going to acknowledge the 10th anniversary of the explosion and fire up at Sartell Mill. And I believe there's a ceremony that's going to relate to that. But just being mindful of how important it is to be prepared for that, and also the cooperation between the jurisdictions. You know, we had 90-some emergency service groups helping out with that tragedy. So again, being vigilant, to take care of issues like that. And then also Memorial Day coming up. There are services around the community throughout the county, and encourage people to recognize and honor those people that paid the ultimate sacrifice.
Thank you, Commissioner Persky. Commissioner Mergen?
I have one thing. I'd like to revisit that park dedication fee. I have another question I came up with. Let's assume that the county decides, rather than take the $3,000, that they are going to confiscate some of the property. Is there a limit on how much property can be confiscated?
Commissioner Murray, yes, there's a formula based on the amount of property that's being developed. Yes.
Okay.
I can't give it to you off the top of my head, but there is a formula.
All right. Okay.
So how many acres are being developed, and that transfers into an amount of land dedication.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Okay, Commissioner Lenzmeyer?
I feel better now.
Thanks.
Oh.
Nothing.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just one more. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I was going to bring up the Central Minnesota Mental Health Facility
Yes.
has their ribbon cutting today from 11 till 2.
What is?
Which the ribbon cutting for the Central Minnesota Mental Health.
Oh, that's, okay.
We helped them through
11
a
to
bond.
2, all righty.
Well, so ribbon cutting's at noon.
Noon is the ribbon cutting.
Because it's an open house. Otherwise,
Yep,
right?
it's an open house, so, and there'll be tours of the facility that take place afterward. Other than that, I don't really have anything else either. So I suppose we can then call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, you almost got to, what is it, 20 minutes is the shortest?
Some of this stuff up because it requires more regulation. And I mean, I don't know